In the quiet college town of Moscow, Idaho, 4 young lives were brutally taken in a single night. Their names: Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogen, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. A night that would haunt this community forever. Law enforcement arrived to a scene of horror. Blood-stained walls, shattered glass, and unanswered questions. How could something like this happen here? Who could commit such a crime? Before we dive deeper, make sure to subscribe to True Crime Drop and hit the notification bell so you never miss a shocking true crime story like this. To the outside world, Bryan Kohberger seemed like a model student, a 28-year-old pursuing a PhD in criminology at Washington State University, just a short drive from Moscow, Idaho, where tragedy would strike. Known for his quiet demeanor, meticulous habits, and dedication to his studies, few could have predicted the horror that would soon unfold. Friends and classmates remember him as intelligent but socially reserved. Some even described him as obsessive about details, always analyzing human behavior and criminal psychology. He often conducted research on infamous criminals, studying their methods, motives, and patterns of behavior. This interest, while seemingly academic, would later take on a chilling significance. Bryan's fascination with crime didn't stop at textbooks. Investigators later uncovered a disturbing digital footprint, extensive research on known serial killers, detailed notes about violent crimes, and internet searches for notorious figures such as Ted Bundy and Danny Rolling. Even more unsettling, he allegedly downloaded information on multiple killers during the holiday season, just weeks before the Idaho murders. While Bryan seemed like a normal student to his peers, subtle behaviors raised questions. Former roommates noted that he often kept odd hours, sometimes disappearing for long stretches without explanation. Social media painted a picture of a studious, intelligent individual, but private searches and hidden internet activity revealed a deeper, darker obsession with violence and criminal tactics. His academic work focused on profiling and understanding criminal behavior, giving him an intricate knowledge of forensic methods and investigative techniques. Ironically, the very tools designed to understand criminals may have provided him insight into how to avoid detection. Investigators would later note that his knowledge of criminal profiling appeared to align with his actions on the night of the murders, suggesting a calculated approach. Bryan Kohberger's family described him as polite, quiet, and introverted. They had no idea that the young man they knew as a student and son could be linked to such a brutal crime. But as the investigation unfolded, law enforcement discovered evidence that pointed to a stark contrast between the persona he presented and the actions he allegedly carried out. The day after the murders, Kohberger made a series of phone calls to his mother. Digital forensic analysis revealed that one call lasted over 30 minutes early in the morning, and another extended conversation occurred while he was near the crime scene. These calls, seemingly innocuous, became critical pieces of the puzzle, placing him near the crime and challenging any attempts to establish an alibi. Courtroom sketches depict him with a calm, composed demeanor, an unsettling contrast to the horrific scene left behind. His educational background, combined with his meticulous attention to detail, has led many experts to describe him as having a calculating intelligence, the kind that allows someone to observe, analyze, and, some argue, plan without detection. Kohberger's neighbors and colleagues recall seeing a seemingly normal man, walking his dog, studying late at night, attending university lectures. Yet beneath this ordinary exterior lay behaviors that, in hindsight, appeared to hint at a darker trajectory. Law enforcement officers noted his knowledge of crime scene procedures and investigative methods, raising questions about whether he could have applied what he studied in his coursework to cover his tracks. In retrospect, every detail seemed to foreshadow the tragedy. His obsession with criminal behavior, his meticulous nature, and his eerie calm under scrutiny. These traits, which once made him an exemplary student, became pieces of a puzzle that investigators would slowly assemble over weeks and months. The contrast between the academic and the accused made this case particularly chilling. By combining his studies, digital searches, and behavioral tendencies, investigators began to construct a psychological profile that matched the circumstances of the crime. His proximity to Moscow, Idaho, the timing of his movements, and the evidence later collected would all point toward him. But before the arrest could be made, law enforcement needed to connect the dots in a way that would withstand scrutiny in court. As we look deeper into the life of Bryan Kohberger, the question emerges: was this merely a student fascinated with criminal minds? Or was this fascination something far more sinister? And how could a young man with so much promise allegedly transform into the prime suspect in one of the most shocking murder cases in Idaho history? As dawn broke over Moscow, Idaho, the true scale of the tragedy became evident. 4 young students were dead, and investigators faced a terrifying question: who could commit such a brutal act, and why? The Moscow Police Department, along with the FBI, immediately secured the crime scene. Every detail mattered, from the shattered glass of the sliding door to the blood-stained furniture. Every trace could lead to the killer. Investigators combed through the house, meticulously documenting fingerprints, fibers, and any trace evidence left behind. They quickly discovered that the attacker had been careful in some ways, but reckless in others. While gloves may have been worn, a knife sheath was left behind, and it would become a critical piece of evidence. This sheath, later analyzed by forensic specialists, contained DNA that would ultimately tie directly to Bryan Kohberger, but law enforcement had to connect him to the scene beyond a reasonable doubt. Every lead, every clue, had to be corroborated with meticulous care. Meanwhile, detectives examined local surveillance footage. Cameras captured a white Hyundai Elantra speeding away from the vicinity around the estimated time of the murders. Witness statements helped narrow down the timeline, and phone data was cross-referenced with digital records to track the suspect's movements. Digital forensics played a crucial role. Kohberger's cell phone, although briefly powered off during the early morning hours of the murders, pinged cell towers near the house before and after the attacks. Investigators could follow his movements with astonishing precision, using technology to recreate the moments surrounding the crime. The combination of physical evidence, surveillance footage, and digital data painted a clear picture. The suspect had not acted randomly. This was a calculated, deliberate act. Police also worked to establish a timeline. Calls to Kohberger's mother were cross-referenced with cell tower data. One call lasted 36 minutes in the early morning hours, followed by another call of nearly an hour as he traveled near the crime scene. These calls, seemingly ordinary, would become pivotal in placing him at the center of the investigation. Investigators then widened their scope, analyzing traffic cameras, reviewing neighborhood witness accounts, and studying Kohberger's social media and online activity. Patterns emerged: his movements, his digital footprint, and the methods suggested a level of premeditation and awareness uncommon in crimes of this nature. The manhunt spanned multiple states. Law enforcement coordinated across Idaho, Washington, and Pennsylvania, reviewing tips and following leads. Detectives pieced together hours of video, dozens of digital records, and countless witness statements, all converging toward a single suspect. The meticulous nature of the investigation highlights the complexity of modern criminal cases. DNA, cell tower data, video surveillance, and digital records are now intertwined, creating a multi-layered net that can catch even the most careful perpetrators. Bryan Kohberger's profile, a young man with intimate knowledge of criminal behavior, combined with obsessive research into serial killers, aligned with the evidence found at the crime scene. While outwardly a student, the combination of his digital footprint, phone calls, and forensic evidence left little room for doubt. By late December, investigators were confident in their identification. Coordinating with federal agencies and local law enforcement, They prepared to apprehend Kohberger at his parents' home in Pennsylvania. Weeks of tireless investigation, piecing together every detail from surveillance cameras, physical evidence, and digital traces, would finally lead to a breakthrough. This phase of the investigation also revealed a chilling level of preparation. Analysis of Kohberger's online activity showed not only fascination with notorious killers, but careful study of crime methods, including knife attacks, stealth approaches, and evasion techniques. Investigators speculated that his academic background may have provided him with knowledge on avoiding capture, knowledge that made this case both challenging and horrifying. Law enforcement made their move on December 30th, 2022, arresting Kohberger without incident. The culmination of weeks of investigative work, from painstaking crime scene analysis to tracking cell towers and surveillance footage, had finally led to his capture. But while the arrest ended the manhunt, it marked the beginning of another stage, unraveling the truth of what happened that night and why. As the investigation unfolded, law enforcement began releasing new evidence that would shock even seasoned detectives. Crime scene photos, meticulously documented, revealed the grim reality of the Idaho house where 4 young lives were taken. The sliding glass door at the back of the house, partially shattered, indicated a possible point of entry. Blood-stained walls and furniture painted a picture of sudden violence. For investigators, every mark, every smear was a clue, a fragment of the story that the victims themselves could no longer tell. Perhaps the most crucial piece of physical evidence was the knife sheath found on Madison Mogen's bed. Forensic analysis would later confirm the presence of Bryan Kohberger's DNA. This single item became a linchpin in the case, connecting the suspect directly to the scene. But the story did not end with physical evidence. Digital forensics revealed chilling details of Kohberger's behavior before and after the murders. His phone records showed calls to his mother at 6:17 a.m., lasting more than 30 minutes, and a subsequent call while traveling near the crime scene. These conversations, seemingly mundane, provided law enforcement with critical timestamps that contradicted potential alibis. Investigators also discovered that on Christmas Day, 2022, Kohberger downloaded information on more than 20 known serial killers. Among them were Danny Rolling, Ted Bundy, and others whose methods involved knife attacks and targeted killings. The parallels between his research and the events of November 13th were impossible to ignore. This digital footprint raised unsettling questions. Was his fascination with serial killers purely academic, or did it reveal a deeper obsession? Law enforcement considered this alongside the physical evidence, the knife sheath, fingerprints, and blood traces, building a portrait of a suspect who not only understood crime, but may have studied it in preparation. Courtroom sketches depict Kohberger sitting calmly, expression unreadable. The contrast between the serene academic and the alleged killer could not have been starker. His composure in court, combined with his academic training, added a layer of complexity to the psychological profile being built by investigators. Crime scene photos now public show handprints on glass doors, furniture disrupted in chaos, and subtle traces of the perpetrator's movement through the house. Investigators painstakingly analyzed each image, cross-referencing with DNA, fiber analysis, and witness accounts. Every detail mattered in piecing together the timeline of events that night. The combination of physical, digital, and behavioral evidence created a nearly complete narrative of the suspect's actions. Investigators could track his entry and exit, the tools he used, and the careful planning that may have gone into the attack. Unlike random acts of violence, this was methodical, calculated, and chillingly deliberate. Beyond the physical and digital evidence, psychological analysis played a critical role. Experts noted that Kohberger's academic focus on criminal behavior, combined with obsessive study of serial killers, suggested an unusual level of understanding of forensic methods and investigative procedures. Some argued that this knowledge could have been applied to evade detection, making the case all the more complex for law enforcement. The release of this evidence has also reignited public interest and media scrutiny. Online communities dissected the photos, phone records, and digital searches, attempting to reconstruct the events of that night. While the images are difficult to view, they underscore the brutal reality faced by the victims and the extraordinary work required by investigators to solve the case. Investigators emphasize that every piece of evidence, from the knife sheath to the phone pings, from surveillance footage to digital downloads, told a story that could not be ignored. When combined, it created a timeline that pointed directly to Bryan Kohberger, leaving little room for doubt about his involvement. The public has been captivated not only by the horror of the murders, but by the meticulous investigation that brought the suspect to justice. The evidence paints a portrait of a suspect who, on the surface, appeared ordinary, a student, a neighbor, a son, but whose actions reveal a chilling darkness. As the trial approaches, the focus now shifts to the courtroom, where the weight of this evidence will be presented, challenged, and dissected. Families of the victims, law enforcement, and the public await answers, hoping that justice will finally be served. Courtroom proceedings immediately drew intense media attention. Journalists, true crime enthusiasts, and concerned citizens all followed the developments closely, dissecting every legal motion and hearing. Kohberger's defense team challenged the admissibility of evidence, questioned the forensic findings, and debated the interpretation of his digital footprint. Meanwhile, prosecutors presented the detailed timeline, crime scene evidence, and digital searches that linked him to the murders. The trial has been delayed multiple times due to pretrial motions and legal arguments, but each delay heightened public anticipation. Families of the victims expressed frustration at the prolonged wait, while law enforcement and legal teams meticulously prepared for what promises to be a landmark case. In a case that has captivated the nation, the story of Bryan Kohberger serves as a chilling reminder. Evil can sometimes hide behind the most ordinary facades. A student, a neighbor, a son, but also the suspect in one of the most shocking crimes in Idaho history. The investigation, the evidence, and the courtroom battle all converge, leaving the world to wait for answers. This is not just a story about crime, it's about the pursuit of truth, the painstaking work of investigators, and the resilience of families who refuse to let tragedy be forgotten. As the trial unfolds, the eyes of the nation remain fixed on Moscow, Idaho, and on a young man whose fascination with criminal minds may have become a terrifying reality. For updates on this case and more chilling true crime stories, don't forget to subscribe to True Crime Drop and click the notification bell so you never miss a story that uncovers the darkest corners of human behavior.